I'm going to talk to you a little bit about where I'm at with my pack selection for Assassin's Way, starting with packs that I know I'm not going to use, through ones that I've used at other events, and then ending on the bag that I'm most likely going to use, but we've still got some time to assess it. So let's look at bags that I certainly won't use. I break bags into two categories: everyday bags and load carrying bags. Everyday bags are like school bags or this Evergoods bag. School bags or this Evergoods bag, they're kind of handy tools that hold the stuff that you're going to need on a daily basis, but they're not designed to carry heavy loads. Now you could certainly feel these to be heavy weight, but there are a few problems with them. The first problem is that all of the load gets transferred to your shoulders. And as humans, we're not designed to carry heavy loads on our shoulders. So I'm going to back up a second. For a number of years, I worked as an anatomy physiology professor. And a lot of what I learned in prior careers, I applied to my outdoor adventures and my other professional goals and outlets. Your arms and shoulder girdles are essentially floating over your ribs, held together with soft tissue. In fact, the only joint that's really holding your whole arm and shoulder girdle on are a small joint of your clavicle or your collarbone and your shoulder, and that clavicle's attachment here on your sternum. Everything else is soft tissue. Hunters may notice this when they're butchering an animal, that you just have to make a few cuts before those limbs come off, and we're really no different. Now, having said that, we're going to keep all of our appendages attached to us, but what that means is that the vasculature and the nerves that come out of our neck, they have to travel across our shoulders and then down through them into the arms. And when you carry too much weight on your shoulders, it compresses the nerves and vasculature, and it causes problems with dexterity and blood flow, which is often temporary, but it could lead to permanent problems. And so really what you want to do is avoid carrying very heavy loads in bags that just have shoulder straps. The other thing that it can do is put weird pressure on your neck and transfer that weight into your lumbar spine and cause herniated discs and other problems like that. Now, I'm not a physician, so I'm not going to go into that too much, but for my personal use and my personal opinion is I found that I've had a lot of issues with bags that aren't developed for load carrying and putting too much weight into them. And I've certainly done my fair share of events and things with bags like this under heavy loads. So you can certainly do it, but there are health consequences to it. So I would just suggest avoiding it. But I bring this bag up because it is probably the best just everyday carry bag of the type that I've ever tried. Really, what you want to do when you're assessing these everyday carry bags for that kind of stuff is look at the points that are going to fail. And really, on these, there aren't that many points that are going to fail. If you go to the shoulder straps and you look at the attachment points that they have to the bag, if somebody's has worn or tears and it looks like that section is wearing out, the bag is a shitty design and it's not worth buying. And so pre-inspect other people's bags, and if you notice that at this point that material is failing, it's a bad bag and I would avoid it. Plenty of bags are very expensive, but they're not worth a shit. This one is great. This one's been carried thousands of miles and there's absolutely no wear whatsoever on the attachment points. And that's why wherever I go, this bag is always in my car. It's on the airplane with me and it travels with me everywhere I go. I love it. But it's not meant to carry heavy loads. So now let's change gears to load carrying bags. Probably the longest used bag that I still do stuff with is this Black Diamond bag. It's a few decades old and it's done plenty of adventure races. It's traveled around the world with me and climbed, and I think it's awesome. But back when I got this, the hip transferability of these kind of bags that were starting to develop some sort of framework on the inside wasn't quite as hashed out as it could have been. And it's not a huge carrying capacity. Now I'm definitely a travel light and fast kind of guy, so I still use this bag quite a bit. It's been upgraded, and the load transferability in the frame is much better nowadays. And I've got the new version but nonetheless, I still kind of like the old one. A variation of that bag, another Black Diamond bag, are some of their winter mountaineering bags. And this bag in particular, I've used on adventure races and to finish the first Sniper Adventure Challenge that I participated in. I used this particular bag because it's light, it's got a decent volume on the inside, and I was able to strap my rifle to the ski straps, and so the carry of the rifle and all that system, it worked okay. It worked all right. We got second place, and I didn't find any trouble with the carry system. But again, the volume limits itself to a couple days use, and on an event like Assassin's Way, where we're carrying a month load of gear, I need a little bit more modularity and a little bit more carrying capacity, and that's why I'm not going to use this bag. But if I go into the mountains, this tends to be my bag of choice when I'm traveling light and fast and doing some sort of an alpine climbing trip. This Creek 50 bag by Black Diamond is another one that I've used at the Sniper Adventure Challenge. It's got a massive carrying ability, and I just shoved the rifle in there with all my shit. And it's a great bag. I think that there's very few drawbacks to it other than the load transfer system isn't quite as developed as some other bags. But again, I carried it through the Sniper Adventure Challenge, probably 60 plus miles, carrying around 50 pounds of gear, which is about the threshold where I like to transfer the weight from my shoulders to my hips. And so more weight than that, and its particular frame system isn't designed to hold up as well as others. And so I got a couple other bags to test out and to put through the motions. One of the bags I picked up was this Stone Glacier bag, and I was really excited to try it out because I'd seen some media, but really quickly it failed on the frame and the bag design tests, and so I put that out and chalked it up to just one of those bags that's not going to get the use that the other bags in my life deserve. I was a little disappointed, but that's what happens when you're testing stuff to figure out if it's going to work or not. So let's talk about the one that I'm most likely going to use, the one that I tend to be most impressed with, and that's this Kifaru bag. This Kifaru bag is very well thought out. It's got a nice frame. I'm not going to bore you with details on frame design and stuff, but it works very well. In fact, I've loaded this up with over 200 pounds, managed to get it up and walk around, and it transferred the weight to my hips in a way. I was able to loosen the shoulder straps so that I didn't have that nerve pressure, and I was able to be mobile and functional despite a very, very massive load. Now, that's beyond anything that I'm going to carry unless it's a human. But I'd like to talk to you a little bit about this design. It's modular in that you can fit the frame to you so that your torso length, hip width, and other stuff, it can be adjusted to transfer it. It's got a nice lumbar pad to get some of that weight and not cause bruising and other things. Sometimes you have people carrying these lighter bags full of weight and they show off all the bruises and friction burns that they get. And although some people are into that, people that actually like to accomplish goals, they're not into that. So being kind of goal focused, I don't want to have bruises, bumps, cuts, and friction burns from carrying weight around. I want it to transfer to my hips, and this bag does a remarkable job. This is the bag that Stoney and I used with Stoney when we won the Sniper Adventure Challenge. I had no problems, other than kind of not really liking the width of the hip straps. That was my only real complaint here, and I haven't looked to see if they have narrower hip strap attachments or not, but the width of those tended to kind of interfere with the function of my glutes a little bit and some of my hip muscles, and I noticed that I had to play around after about mile 50 so that I didn't feel like I was using excessive hip muscles to walk and carry the loads that we've got. Let's look at the cool features of this bag here. It's got these wings that open up and can function like compression straps to sandwich in a larger load. Now, when I got this bag, I picked up a certificate at the Team Safari with Colin Fossen. We got second place, and I was really excited to grab a cert for Kifaru to try out one of their bags. Not because I'm a hunter, but because as a mountaineer and avid outdoorsman, I had a lot of special made, specific purpose climbing bags, and I wanted to try something that hunters were using because it seems like the hunting community is starting to get a little bit more savvy to the gear and the technology and the build, and Kifaru seemed like a good fit to test, and I was very pleasantly surprised. I didn't get the central bag that this can then attach to, but I'm going to show you the general concept. Right? There's a yoke here, and you can insert whatever it is that you're talking about here. In this case, it's just a big, huge sleeping bag, but it could be part of an animal. It could be another backpack. And oftentimes when I go to rifle matches, I'll put in compression bags of gear, and then I can then simply attach these compression straps around the outside and fit the bag to the load that I'm carrying. And as you can see here, this being adjustable can accommodate a hell of a large volume of equipment. In these side bags, you can open them up and store them. Here I've got jet boil and some fuel. You can put in other stuff. On the inside, there are also compartments that are made out of a flexible material. In here I've got avalanche beacons and transceivers, but you can put whatever you want. It's flexible, and that is offered up on both sides, which I think is pretty cool. This will keep things from falling through, and you can attach your rifle on the inside and carry it on the front of the frame. Now my dislikes, I'm not a fan of Cordura. I think it's overused, and it's a lower quality material. It doesn't wear very well. So companies that make bags out of Cordura, I think they're appealing to a community of folks that don't really understand how textiles are used or how these fabrics are used in the outdoor. And I think the climbing world really has a better understanding of that. But nonetheless, there's some Cordura on this, and there's some other materials. I'm not a huge fan of the frame being covered with moly. I think if you're going to be using this bag with another sort of a carry system, having all this excessive moly, it's a little much, and it tends to be the material that wears out the most. Now, this bag is pushing over 1,000 miles of load-bearing travel in the field, and as you can see, the important parts, the shoulder straps, the hip belts, they're in absolutely perfect condition. These things will continue to work probably for thousands of miles after. I have absolutely no wear points where it matters. Where it doesn't matter, I've got a lot of friction and wear spots, and that's just because the material, like the Cordura, isn't meant to be moved around a lot and abused the way that a lot of outdoor gear gets abused. But it's cheap and it's easy to sew onto stuff, so that's one gripe. The other gripe is the width of the hip belts, but again, everywhere that it matters, this thing performs flawlessly. And you can tell that the guys that designed this, or the gals, whoever designed this, they really they use their equipment in the field. They know what they're looking for, and they designed something that has adaptability, modularity, and functionality to carry a hell of a lot of load in a way that remains accessible to the parts that you're going to need. So for Assassin's Way, if I can get away with modifying this, getting rid of some of the crappier material, maybe finding narrower waist belts, but otherwise I'm probably going to go with this particular Kifaru bag, because out of all the bags that I've tested, this seems to be the most versatile, adaptable, and able to carry massive loads very quickly and easily. You can load them up, you can take things out, and you can acquire your stuff. So at this point, that's where I'm at. I just wanted to give you an update on the bags and show you the bag that you're likely going to see me in the field with when I'm carrying a rifle.